Hey, welcome back to the podcast. We have another very practical episode for you here today. Now, this episode was pulled from a recent live Q&A that we did with our podcast audience. So every once in a while we do live shows, and these two specific questions were pulled from that much longer live show, and we thought we'd make just a special episode out of it because these two questions that our listeners asked were related. Both had to do with communication issues, preferences that parents were showing. And what I think is so important about the answers that Nate and I gave here are that they're very practical. They get below the surface. This isn't just, hey, say this and everything will be okay. We actually dive and delve into the specific reasons why these issues are coming up for these two studio owners. And I kind of go into the emotional underpinnings, the emotional realities that are existing beneath the surface that are causing these issues, and then how to solve them using those same emotional realities. So really happy with how this specific short episode turned out. Enjoy, hope it helps you, and we'll see you on the next episode. And we're going to roll that clip right now. So Nicole wrote in and said, our number one request, and I'm coming to you on this one, Nate. Okay, our number one request from students is to be matched to a female teacher. We have fabulous male teachers, however, many families won't even give them a chance. This results in a long female teacher waiting list, while our male teachers still have openings. We've tried explaining how confident we are in our male teacher's skill set and teaching abilities, highlighting their accomplishments with our studio, sharing our very selective hiring protocol that includes background checks, reference calls, and specific criteria, but they insist that their child gets along better with female teachers. We have even offered to refund them 100% of their trial lesson if they feel like they are not a good fit. Still, they ask to be put on the female teacher waiting list. For background, we service private lessons, and a majority of our students are 5 to 12 years old. I will say that part of my interest in answering this question is just, in all the years I've been doing this job, haven't heard this one specifically. So I love it when I get a new question that I haven't heard before. So Nate, I want to kick it over to you first. Again, what do you hear? What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, first of all, I love the fact that, number one, they obviously take hiring and onboarding and training really seriously. And they're talking about the hiring protocol. I love the fact that they've offered a full refund if the trial lesson isn't a good fit. The gender question for sure can come up, and I just want to share where we see it. Where we see this happen is we see this happen generally in this sort of 10 to 12-year-old ranges where parents will start making these specific requests, because what happens for a parent with their child is they've started to catalog classroom experiences and when their child has had a success versus, in their mind, a failure. And one of the simplest criteria that they can link it to is the gender of a teacher. So that's just, it's an obvious choice. So let's say my daughter Josie, she's now 23, but let's say she's 9, and she had 5 classroom teachers up until the age of 9, and all of them had been female. You can see how it's only rational that I'd think, well, she's been really successful with female teachers. I'd love to sort of continue that in her music lesson experience. So first of all, we see it happen more and more as they get older. And sometimes, especially here in this market, we will have, like, there's a gender fluidity thing that's happening, and there will be parents that are very particular about the kind of support that they feel their child needs if that's a reality for them. But we don't see that until generally the middle school. So my first instinct around this question is sort of to go back to what you said to Jill earlier, Daniel, which is we need to understand the story behind that request, right? I don't ever, I mean, I shouldn't say I never trust a request like that, but I certainly don't trust the initial request. I would always want to follow by being like, tell me more. What is it about a female teacher that you think is essential for your child? Like, give me what the 3 to 5 benefits are that come from a gender specific teacher. And from there, I might try to unpack what it is that a parent might be afraid, for example, this happened to my younger daughter where they had one experience with a male teacher that was totally not engaged in her public school system at some point. And so for us, for a while, we were like, maybe it's a male teacher thing, which of course is not a valid concern. That was just one experience we had. But to hear that story is really important. And so how we would manage, let's say it was that. Well, we had a male teacher and he seemed like he just didn't know how to communicate with girls. Let's say that was the fear. Well, then what I would do in response to that, Daniel, is I would say, let me tell you about the male teachers we have on staff and the success they've had with different students of all genders and why I feel they're so successful with them. And I would target that response specifically to communication and their skills at communicating with, girls, boys, whatever. That's how I would approach initially, figure out what's underlying their concern, and then try to use a specific teacher that you have on staff right now that you think is doing particularly well with the parent. And bam, here's a bonus tip I would give. Instead of giving them a trial lesson, say, can I connect you with the parent of this student? And you could ask them any additional questions. And then I would reach out to that parent and it'd be like, hey, I have someone who wants to study under this male teacher. She's concerned that he won't be able to communicate well with her daughter. Would you mind connecting with them and just sharing your experience? I would absolutely 100% ask the parent for help.
So I'm going to share something on screen here. I have 103 pages. If you're listening, you can't see this, I realize, but I'm just scrolling through 100 pages worth of testimonials around this one training that I created. Were you going to say something, Nate?
Yeah, well, separate from just a bunch of testimonials, which is awesome. And we all know that that's like an essential tactic, right? You need to get testimonials from your customers. But what if, as I'm looking at this, what I see is you're highlighting specific comments, and then you, in some cases, you're just saying this is the product they use or whatever. But in other cases, you're like, hey, this is valuable to us around a specific messaging.
Yeah.
That's next level with your testimonials. Get all your testimonials, dump them into a spreadsheet, and then in columns to the right, go, what are the specific messages that these can talk to, so that then whenever you get a parent who makes a request around a specific topic, you can go straight to that testimonial sheet and search under categories. That is an amazing, and it's so wise because you're trying to systemize these things. Right. You're not trying to take every request as it's a unique adventure.
Yes. What I was going to specifically highlight about this is that this is for a particular, quote, product, that we do as Prairie Music Studio. But it could be smart, maybe especially for this teacher, if they're hearing this come up enough that it's a thing, maybe it's something cultural locally in their area. I don't know, because I don't hear this very often. But for you, Nicole, it might be helpful to start collecting testimonials for each teacher in your school and having a separate spreadsheet, or in this case, we are using Google Docs. So, and for this particular teacher, and then highlight this specific concern, because if you're getting this enough that you're here, then I would actually go to these male teachers that have female students and ask parents to write specific testimonials about it. Share this with people that are objecting in this way, and you might see movement on this issue in your school. And that's because what I did in this Google Doc was I all these highlights that Nate was referring to. Because again, if you're watching this on YouTube, you saw them. But if you're listening to it, the highlights are actually around the main objections that people have to converting to group lessons, the fears that they have, the primary fears that people have in moving to group lessons. And I've helped at this point close to 700 studios convert. And all these highlights were around the issues that people have a rational fear over.
And I love that last concrete action you gave. You're like, here's an issue. How do I deal with it? action number one next week is to reach out to the 8 families you have that have male teachers with a female student, if that's the criteria, and ask them for reasons why it works so well, and be totally transparent. Be like, I get all kinds of parents that reach out and they're nervous about a male teacher. I'd love to, in your language, how would you let them know that everything's going to be great with Mike, our piano teacher? That's a concrete action you can do, and then end with what Daniel said. End with the Google Sheet that is just specific quotes from these parents. 2 weeks from now, if you stay on that as your task, 2 weeks from now, my guess is that you'll have a shorter waiting list around parents, your female teachers. So, love it.
This episode is sponsored by BigMusicGames.com. As our listeners know, Brooklyn Music Factory is all about a fun, fluency-first approach to music lessons. And at the foundation of our teaching methods are rhythm, melody, harmony, and songwriting games that challenge students as young as 4 years old to train their ears and flex that musical mind. Because when you set an intention of gamifying every single lesson, you're going to find improved attendance, increased play at home, and higher student retention. So we've set up a website just for our listeners so you can start playing today. Go to bigmusicgames.com/7FMS and create your free account. Again, that's bigmusicgames.com/7FMS. And if you join today, I'm going to send you a personal invite to join our weekly teacher training call with me and Greggy Bizzle, our chief game designer. Go ahead and put play back into practice with Big Music Games.
I did have one I had one question I put in the chat quickly about like the families come in, it goes well. When I read out the times, they say, oh, we need to look at our scheduling. When I follow up with them, they say, oh, our schedule is too busy and we can't make it. And it's happened like many, many, many times. Even the ones that signed up say the same thing, like, oh, we barely found a time to make your class. Is there a way that I can make that easier?
Okay.
Yeah, can I read your question out loud?
Actually, Nate,
Yep.
Can I just jump in with an answer?
Yeah, totally. No, we've got it. We got a good question, Katerina.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Go ahead.
I missed this because I looked at the timestamp. I think I was talking when this came in, so I didn't notice it. But basically what she's saying is that these families come in, they have a good trial, then the family goes away to, quote, check their schedule, and then the momentum is lost, is basically what's happening. Their schedules are tight. And then the specific question is there a way that I can make that final part of scheduling easier? Am I doing something wrong? For context, I just started Piano Express group lessons a few months ago and offer lessons a couple of hours each week. So here's what I would do. And let me check on this. Do you have your most updated schedule with your openings available to them in the trial lesson? Can you show them live and in real time in the trial lesson when all of your availabilities are?
Yes.
And they're looking at that and they're saying they want a delay?
Well, I list like the times.
Okay.
Like, oh, I have like 3:30 on Monday. Or would you say like I should show them like a visual, like on a computer?
Visual.
I would make it visual, yes.
Okay.
I would also, if they say, hey, can I check my schedule and get back with you? I would actually try to get a commitment for a time from a family in the studio. And if they said, can I check and get back with you? I would even go as far sometimes to say to the family is like, honestly, a lot of times when I do that, people end up like kind of disappearing. Could we just try to figure that out now? Like I would ask that. And if they get a little like prickly or like, well, no, I need to talk this over with my spouse, then I'd just let it go. But as much as possible, I think people try in the moment to try to put things off. It's a way of just like, and a lot of times when I would ask that, some families would be just like, okay, yeah. Or I'd say like, well, is your schedule on your iCal? Like, I don't mind to wait a few minutes and we can actually talk through this right now. And when they see that I'm willing to take the time and work with them right there, a good percentage of those people would go ahead and figure it out right then and there. But what I knew also personally was that one of my strategies for turning down a family. Like if a family came in and I didn't want to work with them, you know what I would do? I'd say, hey, let's try to negotiate this through email, because I knew 9 times out of 10 it would fail. That was my way of getting rid of someone, was to like try to do it later. And so it was a nice way to do it, because I knew a lot of times it would just, communication would break down and that'd be it. And so if the family insisted on doing it later, then I would ask them for a commitment as to when they would get back to me by. And I would say, could I text you? And if I text you, will you text me back? I would straight up ask them that, because it's far more likely that people will actually do it if you make them feel bad in advance for ghosting you.
The texting tip, right? Both the visual tip, Katerina, and the permission to text or permission to follow up. Never have the follow-up be in their hands. Mm-hmm. Always say, "How about? Can I reach out to you tomorrow evening on this?" Give them a specific day and time that you're going to reach out, and then the Daniel's tip around getting a number and texting them. Don't get lost in their email box. Make sure you guys have a commitment as to when you're going to be the proactive outreach. And then I agree, Daniel's right that they're less likely to ghost you because they've already said they would reply. We use a version of visual. We use basically an Airtable where they can click anything. Any mom can look at an overview of the entire week, Monday through Friday, for like all the mini keys classes, and then they can just say, I want to grab this spot. Right, so whatever works for you in the context of a visual that gives you an over. Don't go day by day and get caught in the weeds, because as a parent, we all know this who are parents, that the minute you're like, how about 3:30 on Tuesday, the parent's like immediately panicking, right? Because they're already like way over scheduled with their kids. They're trying to think like, wait, I work on Tuesday 3:30, so wait, can I do that? Or will my sitter bring? Or, like they're just already, the wheels are turning when you're in the weeds. So keep it broad view. I got at BMF, we're Monday through Saturday. Like Daniel was saying, just a visual. Here's what's open. Here are the options. Which day would work best for you? And what's a good backup day? And then have them choose a couple.
No, Katerina, I'm also seeing on here that you're saying that some of them are getting back to you and saying that their schedules are so busy that they can't even find a time that works from the options that you're giving them. So this isn't an issue of ghosting. It's an issue also of like them saying, I can't even do it with what you've given me. So I guess my question for you on that component is, other than offering more times, can you think of a solution to that issue? Like if they're legitimately so busy that the times that you're offering aren't working for them, what else can you do? You know what I mean? Like, help me understand that other part of your question.
I guess just offer like I don't have like every class as like Piano Express because I just started it.
Right,
I don't know. I'm thinking like I need to like offer more times.
So what kind of did you ask any parents any follow-up questions to maybe understand from their perspective how you could solve their problem for them? Have you done that at all?
No.
Okay. That wasn't my attempt to put you on the spot. I will just say this. A lot of times we stop at a survey and we don't go beyond that. And I would just say that one of the quickest ways to stress you out is to try to assume responsibility for something that's completely out of your control. At the same time, if we're not asking people questions about things that are out of our control, there is a 0% chance that we are going to come up with the creativity to solve their problem for them. And while we should never take responsibility for their problem, sometimes our business actually kind of depends on it. And so I would sometimes just straight up ask parents like, okay, well, if it's super tight, what would work for you then? Like, how can I make this easier for you? Because little Sarah there had an awesome lesson. She passed more songs in that first lesson than the average kid does. Legitimately, I'm not just gassing you up here. Sarah got through 8 songs. Normally kids only get through about 6. She's gonna do great in this class. When would be a good time for you? And then just see what they say and at least have the conversation, which means sometimes if that happens, and again, this doesn't happen enough with most of the owners, Studio owners will text when they should email. They'll email when they should call. They'll call when they should have an in-person conversation. A lot of times we do not escalate these things enough or take them seriously enough as evidenced by our own effort. Too many studio owners, and I know this is a little bit off topic, but there'll be a money disagreement and they're like texting families about a money disagreement. Insane to me. That's an in-person, face-to-face conversation. This is a call. This is where you actually need to get on the phone with parents and start, because what's going to happen is you're going to understand what's going on in all these people's heads. And it is far more likely that you're going to come up with a solution that's workable for everyone if you're understanding what's going on, like in the culture out there, how they're thinking about this, or that sort of thing.